I wanted to welcome you to my shop in another episode of Joe Fixes It. Today, we're going to replace the ignition switch in a Mark II Jetta diesel. Doesn't necessarily have to be a diesel. They're the same switches for the gasoline versions, and there's still a lot of them floating around. This is an example of an ignition switch in a Mark II diesel. It's made out of plastic, it doesn't last forever, and after about 30 years, it fatigues and cracks. Usually, when you turn your ignition off, all your accessories don't go off, and then it runs your battery down. Sometimes you hit the ignition switch and nothing happens. That's because they tend to crack and split and the electrical contacts don't work anymore properly. You wonder why I have this in my hand? This is the aluminum housing that holds the ignition switch and the ignition lock. Do not confuse changing the ignition lock out with the switch. The switch lives behind the lock, and you have to take this all the way off the steering column in order to get to it. Some of you may have read the manual for the Mark I's, and you see illustrations on drilling a hole in this housing in order to get the ignition lock out. That's not necessary as long as you have the key. That's only when you don't have the key you have to drill a hole in the side of it. We leave the ignition lock intact in the housing, change the electrical switch in the back of it, and put it back together. This is a 1986 Jetta diesel. It had a turbo diesel in it. I'm using it for parts, and today we're going to cannibalize the steering wheel for the purpose of science and education. The first thing we're going to do is pull the steering wheel off. This is the easiest part. You got to get your little horn button out of here. And pull your clips loose. This is your horn button. There's two wires that go on them, one here and one here. Then we have to pull the steering wheel nut off the end of the steering wheel. We need to pull this nut off of the end in order to get the steering wheel off. So we get our socket. I have a 5/16, or you can do the metric equivalent. This one's already pretty loose. The next phase is to pull the plastic housing off in order to expose the plugs. They're just two small screws, and then the second screw. And then we pull this puppy out of the way to expose the wires back here. So now we have that out. Next order of business is to take the signal housings out and unplug the wiring behind it. This one comes out pretty easy, and you can see these two come out. You hang them down, get them out of the way. Next, we take a blade screwdriver and take the 3 screws out. The next thing to do, we have to pull this little keeper off to release a spring so this can slide off after I take the bolt loose down here. And we need this special little puller just for this little duty. Now that we got it out, let me show you how easy it is to change the switch. You can see the switch right there. It just takes one screw, it pops out, and you pop a replacement in. You see, we take the screw out. That holds the switch in, and just pull the switch out just like that. Nothing to it. No need to do anything to the ignition lock. It still works. This is typically where they fail, and then they start having problems turning your ignition on and off. So that's your ignition switch. They cost anywhere from about $3.50 to $6 to replace. If you're running one of these older cars, you can pretty much rest assured it's about to break, because I have not come across one that was original that didn't have a big crack in it, and I have 2 of them that completely failed. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found this useful. This is a small channel. Support the channel, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video. I don't think they mean for mere mortals to get them off. Did I mention that I hate these things? And then the whole thing should come sliding on out. Maybe. I'll make this thing look easy in post editing.